Hi, folks. Robert Quigley here, Washington, D.C., the Money Pit Group. This video is titled The Breaking Point. If you haven't subscribed, please push the subscribe button, add your comments below, join the conversation. Let me know where I'm right, let me know where I'm wrong. Let's get started. The breaking point. What we're going to do with this video is we're going to summarize a lot of scientific data and put it in a very small, succinct point where we can all focus on and clearly see what's happening around us. The breaking point is all about global collapse. First question that we need to ask ourselves, are the pictures we see of the Ukraine just the beginning of global collapse? What am I talking about? Okay, here is where you need to pull out a piece of paper and a pen, or in your mind, draw a picture of an exponential curve. So basically, you got your graph, you got your vertical axis, your horizontal axis. The curve is going to start in the bottom left-hand corner. It's going to basically make a curve headed up to the upper right-hand corner. You can Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm sure 99.99% of the people that do know what I'm talking about. Why is an exponential growth curve important? The answer is because that's what the data on global warming, resource depletion, and inflation, etc., are showing us. The more time that goes by, the bigger, the higher that graph gets. So let's just run through a couple of things. If we look at all of the whole body of let's call it green knowledge, global warming knowledge, from the beginning of the environmental movement, everyone's kind of assumed a stepping stair type of move upward toward the right hand corner of the graph. But from our own observations, we can put the numbers on a graph and look around us, and we can see that, in fact, what we're dealing with is an exponential graph curve. What does that mean ultimately? It means that we don't have a lot of time to solve these problems, so we need to talk a little bit deeper and put some solutions on the table. Okay, well, let's start with temperature. So global temperature, just plot your own local temperature moves. Look at the global increase in temperature. The temperature was pretty stable across the planet for millions of years, and take about 1850, which was the beginning of the industrialization over in Manchester, England, and you bring it up to today. Use that 150-year period as the timeline, and then use temperature increase as the horizontal line. What we see is an exponential growth curve. Well, let's take food shortages. If we were to plot food shortages in the same way, we would have an exponential growth curve. Resource shortages generally, that's even steeper. We would see that same exponential growth curve. Inflation, same type of curve. Violence across the society, same type of curve. Crime, regardless of what folks might think about a decreasing amount of crime, and I'm talking about violent crime here, I'm talking about crime there generally, but of course more specifically violent crime, but crime across the board, we're seeing an exponential growth curve. Footnote there, you make more things criminal, or if you make more things a crime, you're going to have more crime. So crime is headed up. Resource depletion, same type of curve. Speed of community collapse. Now this is what we're focused on, and in my opinion, we are seeing a move up the exponential growth curve. So where are we on the collapse exponential curve? Well, we're sort of at that spot where there's an area, there's a part of that curve that hugs the timeline very closely, but then very quickly it pulls up from that timeline. So we're in the first phase of pulling up from the line axis. And unfortunately, blind faith, which is what people do when they don't understand how to solve problems and they're just hoping that they will go away, is what a lot of folks do. It's also called sticking your head in the sand, like an ostrich, or just ignoring the problem, because if you ignore it, hopefully somebody else will take care of it, or it'll go away and it won't be there when you wake up in the morning. Blind faith is not getting us out of the many problems that I've listed here that are subject to this exponential curve, which is what I'm going to call the global collapse curve. Inflation will lead to slowdown. No doubt, we talked about that in the last video. The last video was pretty much focused on what the little guy can do. Here we're going to focus on a couple of big projects. What are some of the big projects that the governments of the world need to immediately implement to help solve the global warming problem? Well, we've got to basically remove CO2 and methane from the atmosphere. So how in the world do we do that? Well, there are examples of CO2 scrubbers. These things need to be built like there's no tomorrow. They need to be placed all over the planet. Uh, every country in the world should have a dozen of these, or if not more. And big countries should have, many dozens of these. And this should be a high priority. So when we make it to the White House, we are going to do everything we can to populate this planet with CO2 and methane scrubbers. Let's talk about the desert areas. The western part of the United States is very quickly turning back into a desert, which is not going to help anybody. We've got the entire Middle East, which is a desert, which, believe it or not, back in ancient times was a green, lush territory. But essentially, we need a very large number of desalination plants. We need to basically pipe saltless water into areas like Lake Mead and Lake Powell and other reservoirs and rivers all throughout the West. We basically need to reestablish an abundant, robust, full aqua system. And this is, conceptually, this is very, very easy. Damn the land rights. I mean, we got to run, we got to pull water out of the ocean. We got to put it through a desalination plant. We got to pump it to where it's needed. And, that's just the way it is. Run them alongside the road, do what we got to do. But we need to implement big projects like that, like there's no tomorrow. And the alternative, we could go ahead and start a massive relocation program, because we know from the science that the upper quadrant, if you divide America into 4 equal quadrants, the upper white quadrant is going to be the safest place for Americans to be in a runaway global warming environment, and in a catastrophic global collapse type of environment. Of course, if our Canadian brethren hear this, they're like, oh my God, here come the Americans. Just so everybody knows, 80% of the Canadian population lives within 2 hours of the Canadian border. So just above that, there's huge amounts of unsettled land. And I'm sure the Canadians have already thought about it, but when we get to the really severe time period in areas of global warming, those are going to be prime settlement areas. So it might be a good idea to go ahead and get folks' minds thinking about that if we can't tackle this global warming problem. What are some other things we can do? Well, there are some conceptually easy things to do. During George Washington's lifetime, there was a year without a summer, and it was because of a volcano eruption in Southeast Asia, if I remember correctly. But basically, it blanketed the Earth in cloud and soot for more than a year. So in one year, there was literally no summer, and it snowed in the middle of summertime during George Washington's day. Now, if we take that example, we've got modern science. We don't necessarily need volcanoes to do it, but if it happened, that's great. We would take advantage of it, but this is not something that we can make happen, nor should we try to make it happen. But we need to find ways to block out the sun, and one of the easiest ways to do it is to create large amounts of rain clouds. So if we can create rain clouds anywhere on the planet, everywhere on the planet, if we can do anything possible to block out some of the sun, every little bit will help on this front. And why does that make sense? Well, if we can do it in the North and South Pole, or in sort of in the higher and lower latitudes, then what that essentially means is we would have reformation of ice, glaciers, snow, and that would go a long way to reverting some of the environmental problems that's going to take us to the breaking point. So basically, everything individuals could do in the last video on inflation, that will help solve the breaking point issue. So here we are. We have to deal with this on a scientific front, and we also have to deal with it in a cultural and mental front. We have catastrophe heading our way, and it is the default mindset of the human brain to ignore it and to avoid it until it is right smack in our face. And in this situation, right smack in our face will be so too late that it'll be kind of like the dinosaurs. We'll be here eating breakfast one day, and then the next day we'll be a fossil. Not exactly, but you get the idea. It's going to be a lot of catastrophe. You know, we don't want the world to look like Ukraine does, but the catastrophes that are coming could very well pretty much make the pictures of Ukraine become our standard living way of life. So we do have a breaking point coming. It can be solved with foresight, with the help of politics, with the help of science, with the help of economics. If everybody would roll up their sleeve and wake up every morning and say, what can I do today, even on a little scale, to make the world a better place to live, then that multiplied by billions of times will in fact make a difference. So folks, with that topic, I'm gonna call it a day there. If you haven't subscribed to the video, please subscribe. Add your comments below. Tell me where I'm right. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm nuts. Join the conversation. And until next time.